The phone rang at exactly 3:47 in the afternoon, and I remember thinking how official the man's voice sounded. Crisp, professional, like someone who'd practiced saying important things 1,000 times. I didn't know that in the next 42 minutes I would hand over every dollar I'd saved for my daughter's college fund, $15,000, to a stranger I'd never see again. My name is Linda, and for the past 23 years I've worked as a receptionist at a dental clinic in a quiet suburb just outside Portland. It's not glamorous work, but it's steady, and steady matters when you're a single mother raising a daughter on your own. My ex-husband left when Emma was 4, and since then it's been just the two of us against the world, me and my girl, figuring things out one paycheck at a time. Our apartment isn't much to look at, 2 bedrooms on the 3rd floor of a building that smells like old carpet and somebody's cooking from down the hall, but it's ours. The walls are covered with Emma's artwork from elementary school, those finger paintings I couldn't bear to throw away, and photographs of the two of us at the coast, at her middle school graduation, at her 16th birthday dinner at the little Italian place on Morrison Street. Emma's 19 now, a sophomore at Portland State studying to become a nurse. She's always been the responsible one, even as a kid. While other teenagers were out partying, she was working weekend shifts at the grocery store, saving half of every paycheck for textbooks. She got that work ethic from watching me, I suppose. I've worked 2 jobs at times, the clinic during the day and weekend shifts at a retail store when money got especially tight. The college fund started small, $20 here, $50 there, tucked into a savings account I opened the year Emma turned 10. By the time she graduated high school, I'd managed to save almost $18,000. It wasn't enough to pay for everything, but it was something. It meant she wouldn't have to take out quite as many loans. It meant I could give her something her father never did, a foundation, a head start, a fighting chance. I'm careful with money, always have been. I clip coupons. I buy store brands. I fix things myself when I can. YouTube taught me how to repair a leaky faucet and replace a light fixture. Friends sometimes joke that I'm too cautious, that I worry too much about every expense. But when you've lived paycheck to paycheck, when you've had to choose between filling the gas tank and buying groceries, you learn that every dollar matters. That Tuesday started like any other. I woke at 6:30, made coffee in the same chipped mug I'd used for years, and drove Emma to campus because her car was in the shop. She kissed my cheek. Before getting out, told me she loved me, reminded me she'd be home late because of her study group. I watched her walk toward the science building, backpack slung over one shoulder, and felt that familiar swell of pride I always feel watching her move through the world. At work, I checked in patients, answered phones, filed insurance claims. Mrs. Patterson came in for her cleaning and showed me pictures of her new grandchild. Mr. Chen needed to reschedule his root canal. The dental hygienist complained about the cold weather. Normal, predictable, safe. I ate lunch at my desk, like I always do. Leftover pasta from dinner, an apple, a granola bar. I scrolled through my phone, read a few news articles, checked my bank account balance out of habit. $15,237 in savings, $3,812 in checking. Everything exactly where it should be. I remember feeling grateful that day, counting my blessings the way my mother taught me to. Emma was healthy. I had a job. We had a roof over our heads. I didn't know that gratitude would make me vulnerable, that my desire to protect what little we had would become the very weapon someone would use against me. When my phone rang that afternoon, the number looked official, a local area code, the kind that could be the bank or the doctor's office or Emma's school. I almost didn't answer. I almost let it go to voicemail. I wish I had. "Is this Linda Morrison?" the voice asked when I answered. It was male, middle-aged maybe, with the kind of authoritative tone that makes you sit up straighter without thinking about it. "Yes, this is Linda," I said, glancing at the clock, 3:47. Mrs. Patterson was in the chair, and I had 15 minutes before I needed to call her back to schedule her next appointment. "Ms. Morrison, this is Agent David Fletcher from the Fraud Prevention Division of the Social Security Administration. I'm calling regarding a critical security issue with your Social Security number. Do you have a few minutes to speak privately about this matter?" My stomach tightened immediately. Fraud Prevention Division, Social Security Administration, critical security issue. Those words activated something primal in me, that fear we all carry about losing what little security we have, about systems we don't fully understand suddenly turning against us. "What kind of security issue?" I asked, and I could hear my own voice getting smaller, more uncertain. "Ma'am, I need to verify some information first for security purposes. Can you confirm the last 4 digits of your Social Security number?" I should have hung up then. I'd read articles about phone scams, seen warnings on the news, but he sounded so official, so legitimate, and he wasn't asking for my full Social Security number, just the last 4 digits, information I'd given to doctors' offices and insurance companies 100 times before. I gave him the numbers. "Thank you, Ms. Morrison. I'm looking at your file now, and I need to inform you that your Social Security number has been compromised. We've detected fraudulent activity linked to your identity in multiple states: Texas, Florida, and Arizona. There are warrants pending for drug trafficking and money laundering operations using your information." "Warrants?" I repeated. I don't understand. I haven't done anything. I've never even been to those states." "Ma'am, I understand this is alarming, but time is critical here. These criminals have opened 17 bank accounts in your name and have processed over $200,000 in illegal transactions. If we don't act immediately to secure your legitimate accounts, you could be held financially responsible. You could face criminal charges." My hands started shaking. Criminal charges. Financially responsible. $200,000. I thought about Emma, about her college fund, about everything I'd worked for disappearing because someone had stolen my identity. "Ms. Morrison, I need you to stay on the line with me. Don't hang up, don't use another phone, and don't tell anyone about this call until we've secured your accounts. These fraud rings are sophisticated. They often have accomplices who monitor communications. For your protection, this needs to stay between us until the situation is resolved." "Shouldn't I call my bank?" I asked, and even as the words left my mouth, I felt like I was doing something wrong, like questioning him might somehow make things worse. "Ma'am, your bank can't help you with this. This is a federal investigation. Once I've secured your Social Security account, we'll notify your bank directly. But right now, every minute we waste puts your savings at greater risk. Do you have significant savings that need to be protected?" I told him yes. I told him about the college fund, about the $15,000 I'd saved for Emma. I told a complete stranger on the phone the exact amount of money I had. And I told him because I was afraid, because he'd made me believe that my silence and my cooperation were the only thing standing between my daughter's future and complete financial ruin. "Ms. Morrison," he said, and I could hear what sounded like keyboard typing in the background, official and busy. "I'm going to transfer you to our asset protection unit. Agent Williams will walk you through the security protocol to move your funds to a protected federal account. This is temporary, 72 hours maximum, until we've neutralized the threat. Do you understand?" I said yes. And with that single word, I began handing over everything I'd worked for to a man whose real name I'd never know, whose face I'd never see, who'd chosen me out of thousands of people because he'd recognized something in my voice, some combination of fear and trust and desperation that told him I was the perfect victim. The second man's voice was different, younger, smoother, with the kind of casual confidence that made him sound like someone who did this every day, like transferring money to federal protection accounts was as routine as processing a driver's license renewal. "Hi, Ms. Morrison. This is Agent Williams from Asset Protection. Agent Fletcher has briefed me on your situation, and I want to assure you we're going to get this handled quickly and securely. I know this is stressful, but you're doing exactly the right thing by cooperating with us." "How long will this take?" I asked. My shift ended at 5, and I needed to pick Emma up at 6:30. The normalcy of those concerns seems absurd now, worrying about my schedule while a stranger prepared to rob me blind. "Probably 45 minutes, give or take. Now, I'm going to need you to access your bank account. Do you have online banking set up on your phone or computer? I told him I had the app on my phone. He walked me through logging in, and I did it, sitting there at my desk at the dental clinic with Mrs. Patterson still in the chair and my coworker filing papers 10 feet away. And none of them knew what was happening because I was being careful, because I was being quiet, because the man on the phone had told me secrecy was protection. Okay, great. Now I'm seeing in our system that your savings account is the one at risk. The fraudulent accounts they opened are linked to your checking account routing number, so we need to move those savings to the temporary federal protection account immediately. Can you see your savings balance? $15,237, I whispered. Perfect. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give you an account number for the federal holding account. It's a secure government account that's isolated from the banking system where these criminals operate. You're going to initiate a transfer of your savings to that account. The money will be frozen there, completely safe, until the investigation is complete. In 72 hours, we'll reverse the transfer back to your personal account. Once your new Social Security number is issued and your accounts are resecured. It made sense. That's what's so terrifying looking back. It made sense. The logic was there, the official language, the urgency. And I wanted to believe it, because the alternative was admitting that my Social Security number had been compromised, that criminals were using my identity, that everything I'd built was at risk. Can I come to an office and do this in person? I asked. Some part of me still wanted verification, still wanted to see a badge or an office building, or something tangible that proved this was real. Ma'am, we don't have field offices for asset protection cases. This is handled remotely for security reasons. We can't have paper trails or physical meetings that fraud rings could intercept. I understand your hesitation, but every minute we delay puts your money at greater risk. The fraud alert came through less than 2 hours ago. These operations move fast. If they drain your account before we secure it, federal insurance doesn't cover identity theft losses. You'd lose everything. Those words, you'd lose everything, they hit me like a physical blow. I thought about Emma, about telling her I'd lost her college fund, about watching her take on debt she didn't need because I'd been stupid or careless or unlucky. So I did it. I opened the transfer screen. I entered the account number he gave me, a long string of digits he read slowly, carefully, making me repeat them back to confirm. I entered the amount, $15,237. My finger hovered over the confirm button for just a second, one last moment where I could have stopped, could have questioned, could have saved myself. But I pressed it. I confirmed the transfer. And I watched the number in my savings account drop to 0. Excellent, Ms. Morrison. I'm seeing the transfer on my end now. Your funds are secured in the federal holding account. Now for the second layer of protection. We need to establish a verification code for when we return the funds. I'm going to send you a one-time security code to your phone. Don't share that code with anyone except me. As soon as you receive it, read it back to me. A text message came through. 6 digits from an unknown number. I read it to him. I didn't know then that those codes were 2-factor authentication requests for additional transfers, that I was literally giving him the keys to drain my checking account too. I didn't know because I was scared and confused, and I trusted that the professional voice on the phone was there to help me, not destroy me. 20 minutes passed, then 30. He kept me on the phone asking questions about my banking history, about other accounts I might have, about Emma's information for victim coordination purposes. I gave him her date of birth. I told him where she went to school. I gave him pieces of her identity, too, because he made it sound like he was protecting her, like she was also at risk. Ms. Morrison, I'm seeing another alert. They've just attempted to access your checking account. We need to secure those funds immediately before they succeed. How much is in your checking? About $3,800, I said, and I could hear the panic in my own voice now, fully hooked, fully believing. Transfer it now, same account number. Move it before they get it. I did. I transferred every dollar in my checking account to the same place I'd sent my savings. In the span of 40 minutes, I'd moved $18,000, every penny I had in the world, to a stranger. Perfect. Your funds are secure now. You'll receive a confirmation email within 24 hours and a phone call in 72 hours to coordinate the return transfer. In the meantime, don't use your bank accounts, don't call your bank, and don't discuss this with anyone. These fraud rings monitor communications. Silence is your protection. Do you understand? I understand. Someone will call you in exactly 3 days at this same number. Keep your phone on. And Ms. Morrison, you did the right thing today. You protected your family. He hung up. I sat there at my desk, staring at my phone, at the bank app showing 2 accounts with 0 balances, and something cold and sick started spreading through my chest. The office suddenly seemed too bright, too loud. Mrs. Patterson was laughing about something with the hygienist. Someone's phone was ringing. And I had just given away $18,000 to someone whose name I didn't know, whose face I'd never seen, who'd called me at 3:47 on a Tuesday afternoon and convinced me that destroying myself was the only way to save myself. I left work at 5 o'clock in a daze. I remember driving, but I don't remember the drive, like my body was moving through the motions while my brain tried to catch up with what I'd done. I picked Emma up from campus at 6:30 like I'd promised, and when she got in the car, talking about her anatomy exam and her friend's birthday party this weekend, I smiled and nodded and pretended everything was fine, because I couldn't figure out how to tell her it wasn't. We stopped at the grocery store. Emma needed poster board for a presentation. I pulled out my debit card at the register and it declined. I tried again, declined. The cashier looked at me with that mixture of pity and judgment, and I mumbled something about the chip being faulty and paid with the emergency $20 bill I keep in my wallet. "Mom, is everything okay?" Emma asked as we walked to the car. "Just a banking glitch," I said. "I'll call them tomorrow." But when I got home, I didn't wait until tomorrow. I sat on my bed, door closed, and I called my bank's customer service number, the real one, from the back of my debit card. I waited through the automated system, through the hold music, until finally a representative answered. "I need to check on some transfers I made today," I said, trying to sound casual, like I was just verifying something routine. The representative pulled up my account. There was a long silence. "Ma'am, I'm seeing a large transfer out of your savings at 3:58 p.m. and another from your checking at 4:23 p.m. Both went to an external account. Did you authorize these transfers?" I was told it was a federal protection account for fraud prevention. Another pause. "Ma'am, who told you that?" "The Social Security Administration. They called me. They said my identity was compromised and I needed to—" "Ma'am, the Social Security Administration doesn't call people asking them to move money. Neither does the FBI or IRS or any federal agency. I'm very sorry, but it sounds like you may have been the victim of a scam. Those transfers went to an account we've seen flagged in other fraud cases. The money is already gone." "Gone?" The receiving account was likely emptied within minutes of each transfer. These operations work fast. Once the money leaves your account to an external source like that, we can't reverse it. You'll need to file a police report and a fraud claim with us, but I have to be honest, the chances of recovery are very slim. I'm so sorry." The room tilted. I thanked her, I don't know why, and hung up. I sat there on the edge of my bed, the same bed I'd slept in for 12 years, in the apartment I'd made into a home with thrift store furniture and clearance rack curtains, and I understood with perfect, horrible clarity that I'd been robbed. Not by someone who broke through my window or held a weapon to my face, but by someone who'd used my own fear and my own love for my daughter as weapons against me. $18,000. Gone. Vanished into an account I'd never find, taken by people I'd never see, because I'd answered the phone at 3:47 on a Tuesday afternoon. But then something else happened. Something small that changed everything. I pulled up my phone's call history, looked at the number that had called me, and I did what I should have done 6 hours earlier. I searched it online. The first result was a fraud warning site. The number had been reported 47 times in the past month, always the same scam, always claiming to be the Social Security Administration, always stealing everything their victims had. I wasn't the first. I wasn't unique. I was just another name on a list. But I didn't have to be the last. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the dark, listening to the sound of the heater kicking on and Emma's soft breathing from the room next door, and I made a decision. I couldn't get the money back. The bank had made that clear. But I could fight back in other ways. I could document. I could report. I could make sure these people didn't disappear into the shadows without someone tracking their path. At 5 a.m., when the street light outside my window was still the only light on the block, I got up and started making lists. Everything I remembered about the calls, the times, the names they'd used, the account number they'd given me, every detail of what they'd said and how they'd said it. I wrote it all down in a spiral notebook, the same kind I used to help Emma with her homework when she was little. When Emma woke up at 7, I made her breakfast like normal: scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice. She noticed I was quieter than usual, but I told her I hadn't slept well. I wasn't ready to tell her yet. I needed to figure out what I was going to do first, needed to have a plan before I admitted I'd lost her college fund to a phone scammer. After I dropped her at campus, I drove to the police station instead of work. It was a small building, brick and glass, with an American flag hanging out front and a parking lot that smelled like rain on asphalt. I'd never filed a police report before. I didn't know if they'd take me seriously, if they'd blame me for being gullible, if there was even anything they could do. Professional but kind. The officer who took my report was a woman in her 40s, Officer Chen, with tired eyes and a wedding ring she twisted while she listened to my story. She didn't judge me. She didn't tell me I should have known better. She just wrote everything down and said, "You're the third person this week who's reported this same scam. Different numbers, same operation. We've forwarded the information to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, but these operations are hard to trace. They route calls through multiple countries. The money goes offshore within hours." "So there's no way to get it back?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She shook her head. "I'm sorry. But filing this report is important. It creates a record. Eventually, if enough people report, patterns emerge. Sometimes they catch these people. Not often enough, but sometimes." I left the station with a case number written on a business card and a sick feeling that justice, if it came at all, would come too late to help me. But I wasn't done fighting yet. Building momentum. Over the next 3 days, I became an expert in fraud reporting. I filed complaints with the Federal Trade Commission, the FBI's IC3 database, the Social Security Administration's Fraud Division, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I spent hours on hold, repeating my story to different people, filling out forms, uploading documents. Each time I told the story, it hurt a little less. Not because the wound was healing, but because I was turning my pain into action, converting my shame into data points that might help someone else. I called my bank every other day, following up on the fraud claim even though they'd already told me the chances of recovery were slim. I asked questions about their security protocols, about how scammers had gotten past their authentication systems, about why customers weren't warned more effectively about these specific scams. I was polite but persistent. I couldn't bring my money back, but I could make noise. I could be a problem they couldn't ignore. On Thursday evening, 3 days after the scam, I finally told Emma. We were sitting at our small kitchen table, the one that wobbles because one leg is shorter than the others, eating takeout Chinese food I'd put on my credit card because I had no money in my bank account for groceries. "Em, I need to tell you something," I said, and she looked up from her lo mein with that immediate concern in her eyes that reminded me she wasn't a little girl anymore. I told her everything: the phone call, the transfer, the $18,000. I watched her face change from confusion to shock to something that looked like anger, and I braced myself for her to yell at me, to tell me how stupid I'd been, to hate me for losing what I'd promised her. "Mom," she said, reaching across the table to take my hand, "this isn't your fault. You were trying to protect us. These people, they're professionals, they're criminals. This is what they do. They trick good people who are just trying to keep their families safe." I started sobbing then, really sobbing, and she got up and hugged me the way I used to hug her when she was small and had nightmares. "I'm so sorry," I kept saying. "I'm so sorry." "We'll figure it out," she said. "I'll take more shifts at work. I'll apply for more scholarships. We've gotten through worse than this, Mom. We'll get through this too." And right then, sitting in our cramped kitchen with its second-hand table and its wobbling leg, I realized something. The scammers had taken my money, yes. They'd taken my savings and my peace of mind and my sense of security. But they hadn't taken my daughter's kindness. They hadn't taken our resilience. They hadn't taken the fundamental truth of who we were. Two women who'd survived a lot worse than this, and who would survive this too. 2 weeks after the scam, I got a call from a detective with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. I'd almost forgotten I'd filed the IC3 report. I'd done it more out of principle than any real hope it would lead somewhere. "Ms. Morrison, this is Detective Ramirez with the FBI. I'm calling about the fraud report you filed on October 18th. We've been tracking a large-scale operation that matches the pattern of your case, and your detailed report helped us identify several key connections. I wanted to update you on our progress." "Did you catch them?" I asked. "We've made 3 arrests, 2 in Nigeria and 1 in the U.S. who was serving as a money mule. We've also frozen several accounts associated with the operation. I can't promise full recovery of your funds, but there's a victim restitution process. If we seize assets, victims can file claims. It takes time, sometimes years, but it's possible." Years. The word hung in the air. My daughter would be graduated by then, would already have taken out loans and worked extra shifts and budgeted every dollar. But still, it was something. It was more than I'd expected. "The reason I'm calling," the detective continued, "is that your report was one of the most detailed we received. You documented times, phrases, account numbers. Most victims don't do that. They're too upset, too ashamed. Your information helped us establish patterns that connected this operation to 17 other cases. I wanted you to know that. You helped us build this case." I thanked him. I thanked him for calling, for taking my report seriously, for treating me like I mattered. When I hung up, I sat on my couch and cried, not out of sadness this time, but out of something like relief. I hadn't gotten justice yet, and maybe I never would. But I'd fought back. I'd made my voice heard. I'd turned my victimhood into action. A month later, I received a letter from my bank. They were crediting my account $1,500 as a settlement for inadequate fraud protection. It wasn't everything. It wasn't even close, but it was something. The letter included an apology and a description of new security measures they were implementing, including better customer education about phone scams. I framed that letter. Not because $1,500 fixed anything, but because it was proof that institutions could change, that speaking up mattered, that the system wasn't perfect, but it could bend toward justice if enough people pushed. Emma and I adjusted. She took a part-time job tutoring at the campus learning center. I picked up weekend shifts at a local coffee shop. We applied for every scholarship we could find. She wrote essays at midnight and I proofread them, catching typos and cheering her on. The college fund was gone, but our determination wasn't. The scammers had taken our money, but they hadn't taken our will to survive. 6 months after the scam, I started volunteering at a local senior center, running workshops about phone scams and internet fraud. I'd tell my story to rooms of elderly people who'd nod in recognition, who'd share their own close calls, who'd thank me for being brave enough to talk about it. One woman told me I'd probably saved her life savings just by describing how official the scammer sounded, how convincing the fear tactics were. That's when I knew. The scam hadn't broken me. It had changed me, yes. Made me more cautious, more suspicious, more aware of how thin the line is between safety and devastation. But it had also made me a fighter, someone who refused to let shame silence her, who turned her worst day into a teaching moment, who decided that if she couldn't get her own money back, she'd at least make sure fewer people lost theirs. It's been a year now since that phone call at 3:47. Emma's finishing her junior year of nursing school. She'll graduate with some debt, yes, but less than we feared. She got a scholarship, a big one, after writing her admissions essay about watching her mother turn a devastating loss into community action. She wrote about resilience, about how strength isn't never falling down, but getting back up and helping others stand too. We're okay. Not the same as we were, but okay. I still work at the dental clinic. I still clip coupons and buy store brands and fix things myself when they break. But I'm also rebuilding that college fund, dollar by dollar. It won't be $15,000 by the time Emma graduates, but it'll be something. It'll be proof that you can lose everything and still find a way forward. I learned things I wish I hadn't needed to learn. I learned that shame is a weapon scammers count on, that they bet on your silence, keeping their crimes invisible. I learned that fear makes you vulnerable in ways you can't predict until you're in the middle of it. I learned that the voice of authority, crisp, professional, confident, can make you doubt your own instincts, can make you hand over everything you have without ever seeing a face or a badge or a single piece of proof. But I also learned that survival isn't about never making mistakes. It's about what you do after. It's about whether you let the mistake define you or whether you let it teach you. It's about getting up the next morning and making breakfast for your daughter and going to work and filing police reports and calling senators and volunteering at senior centers. All those small, unglamorous acts of resistance against the people who tried to break you. The scammers wanted my money and they got it. But they wanted more than that, even if they didn't know it. They wanted my silence. They wanted my shame. They wanted me to disappear into my loss and never speak of it, never warn anyone, never fight back. And that's the one thing I refused to give them. Sometimes I still think about that moment, my finger hovering over the confirm button, that last second where I could have stopped. I used to torture myself with that memory, replay it endlessly, imagine all the ways I could have been smarter or more careful. But now I understand that's not the point. The point isn't that I should have known better. The point is that I was targeted by professionals, criminals who've perfected the art of psychological manipulation, who study human fear the way surgeons study anatomy. I was a good target because I cared, because I had something to lose, because I loved my daughter enough to do anything to protect her future. And you know what? I'm not ashamed of that anymore. I'm not ashamed that my love made me vulnerable. I'm only ashamed that people exist who weaponize love, who turn our best instincts against us for profit. If you're listening to this and you've been scammed, I want you to know something. It's not your fault. You're not stupid. You're not gullible. You're human. You answered a phone call, or opened an email, or responded to a text message, and someone who's made a career out of manipulation used every psychological trick they know to steal from you. That says everything about them and nothing about you. Report it. Tell someone. File the police report and the FBI complaint and the FTC form, even if it feels pointless, even if they tell you the money's probably gone. Do it because your voice matters, because your story is data, because somewhere in a federal database, your case might be the one that connects the dots. And do it because speaking up breaks the shame cycle, because silence is what scammers count on, and your voice is the one weapon they can never take from you. Emma and I talk about it now sometimes, usually late at night when we're both too tired to sleep, sitting in the kitchen with tea and the comfortable quiet of two people who've been through something hard together. She told me once, "Mom, I'm not glad it happened, but I'm proud of how you handled it. You didn't hide. You didn't give up. You showed me what it means to be strong when everything's falling apart." That's when I knew I'd won, in the only way that really matters. The scammers took $15,000 from me, but they gave my daughter a lesson in resilience, in grace under pressure, in the difference between falling down and staying down. They gave her a mother who fights back, who speaks up, who turns her pain into protection for others. I still answer my phone when it rings, though I'm more cautious now. I interrupt anyone who says they're from a government agency and ask for a callback number I can verify. I never move money based on a phone call, no matter how urgent they make it sound. And I pay attention to that little voice inside, the one that said wait when my finger hovered over the confirm button, the one I ignored because fear was louder. That voice, your instinct, your gut feeling, whatever you want to call it, it's usually right. If something feels wrong, even if you can't articulate why, even if the person sounds official and convincing and perfectly reasonable, trust that feeling. Hang up. Call back using a verified number. Talk to someone you trust. Give yourself permission to be rude or paranoid or whatever word they'll use to try to keep you on the line. Your financial security is worth more than politeness. A year ago, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. A year ago, I sat on my bed staring at bank accounts that read zero and wondered how I'd ever recover from this, how I'd face my daughter, how I'd live with the shame of being so thoroughly, completely fooled. But here's what I know. Now, you can lose your money and keep your dignity. You can make a terrible mistake and still be a good person. You can fall victim to a crime and still be strong. You can have the worst day of your financial life and discover that you're made of tougher stuff than you ever knew. The money's mostly gone. Some of it might come back through restitution, most of it won't. But I'm still here. Emma's still in school. We still have our cramped apartment with its secondhand furniture and its view of the parking lot. We still have Sunday dinners and inside jokes and the kind of love that survives in spite of everything, or maybe because of it. I used to measure my worth by how much I'd saved, by the numbers in that college fund account. Now I measure it differently, by the workshops I teach, by the people who come up to me afterward and say, "Thank you for warning me," by my daughter's scholarship essay and her dream of becoming a nurse, and the way she looks at me like I'm still her hero, even after I lost everything. The scammers thought they were stealing money, but what they actually did was show me what I'm made of. They tested every ounce of strength I had, pushed me to the edge of despair, and then they waited to see if I'd break. I didn't break. I bent. I stumbled. I cried and raged and mourned, but I didn't break. And neither will you if this happens to you. Neither will you. Because here's the truth they don't want you to know. You're stronger than the worst thing that's happened to you. You're bigger than your biggest mistake. And your voice, raised in warning, in testimony, in refusal to be silenced, is worth more than any amount of money they could ever steal. That's what I learned from losing $15,000 to a phone call at 3:47 on a Tuesday afternoon. That's what I carry forward. And that's what I want you to know, whether you're listening because you've been scammed, or because you're afraid you might be, or because you're just trying to understand how something like this could happen to someone like me. It can happen to anyone. The recovery belongs to everyone, too. We survive together. We warn each other. We refuse to let shame win. And slowly, one story at a time, one police report at a time, one workshop at a time, we take back the power they tried to steal from us. Not just the money, though we fight for that too, but the power to speak, to survive, to stand up and say, "You picked the wrong person. I'm still here, and I'm not done fighting yet." Thank you for listening to my story today. If it resonated with you, if you've been through something similar, or if you know someone who needs to hear this, I'd be so grateful if you'd hit that like button and leave a comment below. Your stories matter too. Sharing them helps all of us feel less alone. And if you'd like to hear more real-life stories like this one, stories about resilience and survival and finding strength in unexpected places, please subscribe to this channel. We're building a community here, a place where people can share their truths without judgment. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And if you're going through something hard right now, please remember, you're not alone. You're stronger than you know, and your story deserves to be told. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.